Pottery is commonplace today. It's used in everyday life, and it's hard to imagine living without it. There are cups, there are bowls, there are saucers, there are plates. There's all sorts of vases and containers, and yet for most of its existence, Scotland did not have pottery. It first occurs in the Falkirk area about 4,000 years ago in the Neolithic, in very scarce quantities, and it comes back again in the Bronze Age when beakers are introduced, associated very much with the ritual of drinking, and we still have drinking rituals today. The Romans brought beakers back again for a 20-year period when the Antonine Wall was occupied. And for that period, pottery was used prolifically by the Roman army, but not by the native population. Pottery at that time was an alien culture, and it was almost 1,000 years later, in the 13th century, before it started being used in daily life again, initially imported from England up the east coast. But in the late 15th century, some very large kilns were made in Stenhousemuir, and from here they started manufacturing quite a high quality product. The kilns were situated almost adjacent to the old Roman temple, Arthur's Oven, on the north side of the River Carron. And the location is very important because it meant they could use the waterway to get their goods to the markets. So you would go up the River Carron and then up and down the east coast, and using the inland waterways to get the products to the markets. The two primary markets would have been the royal palaces, so Stirling, Linlithgow, Edinburgh, and the abbeys. So you can imagine the material going up to Arbroath or down to places like Melrose. And if you go to Melrose Abbey today, there's a very large display of Stenhouse pottery in the museum there. At the time, roads were almost impassable, and you certainly couldn't take delicate objects like pottery on the roads almost anywhere in Scotland, so the waterways were the main arteries for transport. The material being made at Stenhousemuir was very varied. It consisted of jugs, frying pans, bowls, mugs, all sorts of stuff. The jugs were often called water jugs, but they were probably for containing wine if they belonged to the monasteries. And there's a beautiful lead green glaze on the outside which would have made them waterproof, so they would have held the liquid quite nicely, except for those which were deliberately punched with holes in the base so that they could be used as watering cans. It's rather nice thinking of the idea of the monk going around the herbal garden in the monastery watering the plants with a watering can from Stenhousemuir. Amongst the more unusual product are the earliest known sugar jars from Scotland, when the Scottish sugar industry was very much in its fledgling stage. The decoration is very varied, but relatively simple. Most of it is made using pointed sticks or hollow sticks to provide circles and line decoration. And the most common motif is the face mask applied to the rim, and the vast majority of them actually remind people of E.T. From the film. Proof positive perhaps that there were spaceships landing somewhere in the Falkirk district, or not. The material is sophisticated, and it was aimed at a high status market. And it's often thought that because some of the pottery has Maltese crosses on it, that the Templars may have been involved in the economic process. And certainly the Bruces of Stenhouse must have had a share in the profits. The reason why I've chosen it as the sixth of our 10.5 objects is because it shows the beginning of large-scale production of material that's used in relatively daily life. It's the beginning of the industrialisation process, the upscaling of the production of these materials. But also to do that you have to have an efficient distribution network, which is what the rivers provided, And once you've got the idea that you can do long distance trade, you improve the road system as a consequence of that. But on the back of that, you also need to be able to transfer money over long distances. So it shows the beginning of the banking system in Scotland. So it's very worthy of being included in our objects.